All right. So, I'd like to hear from a few of you, please. Who would like to share your strongest reason? What's the one thing that you want to get out of the next 2 days? Who'd like to share with us? Yes, lady right in the front. I'm going to make Carl work here. Stand up, please. What's your name?
Hello, my name's Samantha Hearn.
Hey, Samantha.
Hello. I would like to spend and find out as much as I can about scaling my business from 6 to 7 figures.
Amazing. Well, first of all, congratulations on 6 figures. Round of applause for Samantha. Not easy.
Thanks.
You're in like the top 5% already. I'm going to tell you that.
Thank you.
And we've actually got a whole section that we're going to do. I've got a session just after lunch, mid-afternoon. You've already seen it in the program. You're like, yeah, I've got it circled. So that is about how to, if you're in the, actually, I'll just ask a question. Thank you for that, by the way. Give her a hand. I'm curious. Raise your hand if you're currently in the early stages of your expert business. So either you're pre-startup or you're not yet at a point where your expert business, your business is a coach, a consultant, a speaker, a trainer, an author, and maybe it's an agency. Raise your hand if you're not yet generating a full-time income from that business. Raise your hand if that's you. All right, cool. So in the session that we just talked about, I'm going to show you, right, here are the things that you need to do to get to the point where you're making a full-time income. And also, here's all the shit you don't need to do. Because oftentimes, isn't it true that we get overwhelmed by all the different fads and shiny objects and magic bullets that are going to get you more leads, get you more clients, and so we get distracted and you wake up in the morning and go, I don't really know what my priorities should be or what I should focus on today. Raise your hand if you can relate to this in some way, shape, or form. Right, so in that session, we're going to talk about what to do and what not to do when you want to go from startup or not yet making full-time income to full-time income. Second thing we're going to talk about is then once you're making a full-time income, how do you turn that into a multi-six-figure business? Which is a completely different set of strategies and tactics that are required. And finally, we're going to look at how do you take your six-figure or multi-six-figure business to 7 figures, which is exactly what Samantha's asking for. And again, completely different journey, different strategies, different processes, different tactics that are going to get you to 7 figures. So that session, I think, will be really helpful for all of you, and in particular for you, Samantha. Who's next? What else you want to get? What's your big #1 goal or outcome for being here? Yes. Stand up, please. What's your name?
My name is Moeed.
Moeed, yep.
So for me, I want the tools to take my business from where it is now to sales of 10 million per year.
Wow. Amazing. I love the thinking big. Where is it now? In relation to that goal?
So there was a few ups and downs.
By the way, you are, I'll tell you, you're the only person in this room that's ever experienced ups and downs.
Well, I lost
completely
I lost a few million,
hey.
And I learned from that.
You know what that means?
Well, actually, it was a good thing. I learned a lot from that.
Good.
It's currently at $500,000.
Great. So how do you go from $500,000 to 10?
To 10.
Big goal. I love the thinking big. Yeah. And I think, again, that session will really help you with how do you get it to 7, multi-7, and beyond. Yeah, good. Give me a round of applause. All right. One more. Who else? Yes, this lady here, please.
Hi, I'm Sophia.
Hey, Sophia.
And I'm a student, so I have a publishing company, so I want to broaden out to parents as well as students.
First of all, when I was a student, I was getting pissed. I was not running a publishing company, so good job on that. Yeah. Great, so what's the one thing you want to get over the next 2 days?
So to build my connections with a different target audience, so parents as well as people my age.
Perfect. Okay. Great, give a round of applause. And I think you talk about creating connections, and for me, I have, over the last, 20 years, invested lots of time and money in attending events and conferences like this all over the world to create connections. And it's the investment of time and money like that that has helped build what we've got today. Those connections have helped me get speakers like Tom Bilyeu and Carrie Green to make rare appearances on our stage. Those connections were how we got Gary Vaynerchuk and Grant Cardone and people like this. So I think putting yourself in the right environment, which you're doing, all of you are doing, is definitely a good thing. So for the opening kind of keynote for this 2 days, and the clicker does not appear to be doing its job. Bick. Fortunately, I already know what's on the next slide. So the keynote is really built around this. We are weeks away from the end of a decade. How scary is that? I'm curious, raise your hand if you're not yet where you wanted to be at the end of this decade. Raise your hand if you're maybe a little bit dissatisfied with the results you're currently getting in your business and in your life. Those of you that got your hand in the air, great, you're in the right place. If you haven't, then that tells me, first of all, good job, you've done really well in this last decade or over the years. What it also tells me is it's probably time to set a new standard. To start thinking bigger, to start thinking, how can I go from 500,000 to 10 million? Because, and this is, a quote that I use a lot, it's from Tony Robbins, that people dramatically overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year, but underestimate what they can achieve in 10. And so really the frame for this morning's keynote, and I'm hoping the clicker is now in action, is my 8 predictions for the expert industry as we enter a new decade. Over the next 10 years, what are the trends that I've seen since 2010 to now? And what are the trends that I see in the future over the next 10 years? So you can start now. I've already started making moves based on these predictions as we go into the next decade. So I'm going to give you my 8 predictions for the next decade for the expert industry throughout the 2020s, if you like. Before I do that, and I know there's a lot of you here that are here for the first time at Expert Empires, so I always like to share, how did Expert Empires come about? What was the journey? How did it come about? How did I get into the events business? And some of you know this, but many of you won't, that at 12 years of age, I was at a Tony Robbins seminar in Kona, Hawaii. At 12 years of age, you might think, what on earth was a 12-year-old doing at a Tony Robbins seminar on the other end of the world? So my mum, who's here somewhere, buzzing around, making this show work, my mum was a trainer for Tony's organisation. And when I was 12, she said to me, so Nick, I'm going to Hawaii for 2 weeks. You can either stay with your nan in Birmingham, or you can take 2 weeks off school and come with me to Hawaii. Wasn't a difficult decision. As much as I love my nan to bits, it wasn't a difficult decision. And so off I went to Hawaii. I didn't know anything about personal development. I wasn't really convinced about the whole Tony Robbins happy clappy thing. But I went with it because it was an exotic destination for 2 weeks instead of school. And in that couple of weeks, my brain literally exploded. Everything changed. Raise your hand if you can recall your first experience or exposure that led you on the path to what you're doing now. Maybe it was a seminar or watching videos or reading a book. Just raise your hand if you can recall that first experience. So mine was Tony Robbins at 12 years of age in Hawaii. And I was surrounded by these incredible people. They were ambitious. They were forward-thinking. They thought big. Some of them were already very successful, and it gave me this whole new world. There's lots of entrepreneurs, and so I decided there and then, this is what I want to create. This environment, this is what I want to work in, this is what I want to be part of. And of course at 12, I didn't know how to make that happen. I didn't have the first clue, but I made the decision then. Now, and I'm sure many of you can relate to this, it wasn't all smooth sailing, and so at the age of 21, I was working at the West Bromwich Building Society, filing mortgage applications. And I remember sitting there one day on the floor of the office, filing these mortgage applications, and I had this moment of realization. I don't know if you've had a moment like this, where I had a flashback to Hawaii and Tony Robbins, and I went, this reality could not be any further away from what I'd hoped for or what I'd dreamed of. And in that moment, I made a decision. I wrote out my letter of resignation, walked into my boss's office, dropped it on the desk, and walked out. And I didn't know at the time how to run a business. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I didn't have formal qualifications. I didn't know anything about running a business, but I had the vision of what I wanted to create. Raise your hand if you've had this experience, that moment of decision where it was either leaving a job or a relationship or a business to move on to follow the thing that you really wanted to do. Raise your hand if you've had that experience. It's probably one of the pivotal moments as to why you're here with us today. So I decided I was going to set up a business. I've been lucky to be in the personal development, self-help industry from 12 years of age. I thought, I'm going to set up a business helping kids, teenagers. Because I don't know about you, but I really feel that when it comes to mindset and it comes to emotional intelligence and all these amazing things, I really believe this stuff should be taught in schools. And it isn't on the curriculum. I thought maybe that should be me that does that. So I got 3 months into my first business in the expert space as a youth coach. 3 months in, guess how many clients I managed to get? What do you think? How many do you think? 0. Oh, who said 0? Thanks for the vote of confidence. It was slightly better than 0. We got I managed to get 1 client in that first 3 months. And that 1 client was a referral, an introduction from my mum. That's how poor my marketing skills and business skills were. But I had this 1 client. I was getting paid, £250 a month to coach this teenage girl who was going through loads of challenges and problems, and they couldn't handle her at school. 3 months down the line after that, I just went, this isn't working. I was living at my nan's because I didn't have enough money to pay rent or get my own place. And I got a call from this guy who's here in the room somewhere, Andy Harrington. Raise your hand if you know of, you've met Andy Harrington before. Bit of round of applause started there for Andy. I think we should continue that. And Andy offered me a job in sales. We'd met in the whole Tony Robbins environment, offered me a job in sales. And I wasn't sure because I went, sales, it's not really my thing. I'm a coach. I want to help people. I want to contribute. I don't really want to sell. That's not my game. But Andy, I don't know if you've met Andy. If you have, if you've seen him speak, Andy can be quite influential. And so using these powers of influence, Andy convinced me to go and work in his company. So I moved my whole life from Birmingham, moved down to Kent to work for Andy's training company. Best decision I ever made. Because I changed my environment. I changed my peer group. I got around people who were positive-minded. It was like working in a mini kind of Tony Robbins environment. Of course, now what Andy's achieved since has been absolutely incredible. He'll be sharing some of that with you tomorrow in his speaking slot. And after about 2 years, I then decided it was time for me to go out on my own, to do my own thing, to branch out. I'd learned enough from being in that entrepreneurial environment to then go and do my own thing. And I set up my first kind of real business, as I call it, as a freelance copywriter. So I'd create sales letters and email campaigns and marketing materials for small businesses. And we did all right. First year, got the thing off the ground, did about £50,000 in sales. Second year, grew it a bit more, got to about 80,000 in sales. So we were making a full-time income. It was looking good. I'm going to share a little bit of how we did that for those that are just getting started in this afternoon session. And then in March 2009, I had a phone call because I had one client that was responsible for nearly half of that 80-odd thousand pounds a year. And in one phone call, that client cancelled my retainer. Just imagine, right now, regardless if you're in employment, you've got a business, just imagine if you lost almost half of your income or half of your sales in one phone call. To make matters worse, then, my fiancée, who's now my wife, was pregnant with our first child, and I had a wedding to pay for just 6 months later. And it caused me to start thinking differently. Not out of inspiration, out of desperation. I had to do something different, so I decided to run my first event. It was called the Copywriting Academy. I thought, the expertise I've got, the skills I've got, instead of just helping one client at a time, which was a flawed model, I'll work with groups. I'll teach people these skills in a group format. My first ever event, it was called the Copywriting Academy. We managed to get a grand total of attendees of 8 people. 8 people. And the reason I share this with you is one of my core philosophies that I think is so underused, if you like, in our industry, is to I love think big. I want to go from 500,000 to 10 million. I'm all for it. Think big, but start small. Think big, think huge, but start small. And so I started with 8 people. It was to this day, this was probably one of the most important events I've ever run because it got me started. It got me out the gate. And from that 8 people, then it became a bit of a scaling operation. It was right then, how do we take it to 20, 30, 40? So within a few months, it was 30, 40, 50 people every so often in these events. We had a multi-6-figure business. Then again, it became a scaling operation. How do you take it to 7 figures? We started running bigger events like the one you're in today. In 2015, my life was on a high. I had a multi-7-figure business. We were running these big events. The money was flying in. And then I had a meeting with this guy called Gary Vaynerchuk, if you don't know him. The purpose of the meeting, as far as I was concerned, was to get him to keynote at my next event. I thought, if I can get Gary to keynote, it'll be the biggest event we've ever done. Frankly, we're going to make a shitload of money. That was my motivation at the time. Being completely transparent with you, that was the focus. And Gary, in the way that only he could, completely shot down the idea of the proposal, and he said 2 things, which have changed my life. The first one was, Nick, stop doing horseshit events. These events are motivated by money and sales and nothing else. You have speakers that they're selling shit that doesn't work to people that don't need it. He said, if you take this advice, you'll make less money in the next year, but more in the next 10 than you ever dreamed possible. And after that meeting, it was a pivotal moment for me. I made some big decisions and completely changed the direction of my business. He was right. In the next year, made less money. We went back to being a multi-6-figure business rather than multi-7. We scaled it right back to get it right. 12 to 18 months later, the first Expert Empires event was run. We had Gary Vaynerchuk as the headline speaker. Since then, we've had Grant Cardone, Ryan Dice, David Goggins, Lewis Howes, you saw some of them on the video, Shalene Johnson, Dan Meredith, Fabienne Fredrickson, Lord Sugar. We've had some amazing speakers over the last 3 years. We've had over 3,000 people come through this event in the last 3 years, and it all came from that moment of decision. I wonder what decisions you'll make over the next 2 days that will be pivotal. I wonder what decisions you could make over the next 2 days that could change the course of your business and your life, that could literally change everything. In June this year, ran our biggest event ever, ventured out into doing property education as well. It's an area that I'm not an expert in, but I wanted to get into using the philosophy we've got for Expert Empires. I feel that's an industry that's been hammered with those hard sell events. I want to do something different. That was the biggest event, to my knowledge, that's been done of its kind in the UK. We had over 1,400 people in attendance at the Property Super Conference in June. So sometimes making these decisions, I didn't know that that was what was going to be created back when I made that decision with Gary Vee. Sometimes it goes in directions you can't possibly imagine. So let's get stuck in, shall we? Let's get stuck into these 8 predictions for the expert industry as we enter a new decade. There's a lot of trends I've noticed over the last 10 years. Some of those trends will continue. Some of them have already died. So my job here really is to give you my sense or my idea of what I think's coming next. So what I'd like you to think about is, what have we seen? What do we know works? Or what has been working for the last 10 years? And then let's challenge our thinking and think differently and go, what do we think the next 10 years might be about? So first off, let's talk about social media for a sec. So in my mind, there is no doubt that social media of the last 10 years, the last decade, has been dominated by one core platform, and that's Facebook. I'm curious, raise your hands if you either are or have run advertising, you've paid to advertise your business, your products, your services on Facebook. You've actually spent money on Facebook at some point. So most of you. Raise your hands again if you've noticed over the last few years or even the last year that the cost of advertising, the cost of getting a lead, the cost of getting eyeballs on your ads on Facebook has gone up significantly. Raise your hand if you've noticed that trend. Yeah. So again, most of the people that are running ads on Facebook have noticed that trend. Now, of course, there are tactical things you can do to bring down the cost per lead. And in the main, though, it ain't getting any cheaper. The second thing, I did some research on this, and there's mixed reviews, but the data seems to suggest that organic reach through Facebook, through your page, is now somewhere between, and there's debate, somewhere between 2% and 6.5% of the people that follow you on Facebook are actually seeing your content organically. So just stop and think about that for a sec. If you'd spent time and money and effort over the last 3, 4, 5, 10 years building up your organic following on Facebook, let's say you got 100,000 people, that means probably between 2,000 and 6,500 are actually seeing the content. I don't want to be doom and gloom about it, but this is the truth. This is where we're at. Now, I'm not saying that Facebook's going anywhere anytime soon. But what I am saying, I think we can all agree, it's getting less and less effective. And so my prediction, and by the way, what I'm about to say might sound like a bold statement, and I'm going to back it up with why I believe it to be true. I believe the next 10 years, I still think Facebook's going to be there. We're still running ads. We're still using it. I'm not saying bin it off. I think the next 10 years are going to be dominated by, for us, in the expert industry, this isn't all business, for us, the expert industry, I believe that the next 10 years is going to be dominated by 2 platforms, and it's LinkedIn and Instagram. Let me tell you why. Well, first of all, people far smarter than I am have predicted the same. I met up with Gary Vee when I was in New York a few months ago. We met up briefly, and he is convinced. And he knows a lot more about social media than I do or anyone else in this room. He's convinced. He said the very words, he said, you remember Facebook 10 years ago? That's LinkedIn now. That was his words. And by the way, these predictions are part of how I've constructed the agenda for the next 2 days. So at the end of today, last slot today, we've got Chris Taylor. Where's Chris? Is he in the room anywhere? Lynn's a fan. Chris is in the room, but Chris is going to be delivering a presentation this evening, last slot today, on how you can grow your Instagram following, how you can generate leads from it, and how you can monetize that following. The reason I'm putting Chris in on this stage at this event is because I believe that that's a big platform over the next 10 years. Tomorrow morning, first thing, we've got Sam Raffling. Sam's in the room. Give Sam a round of applause. The queen of LinkedIn, ladies and gentlemen. Royalty in the room. And Sam's going to share similar, but on LinkedIn. How do you build your following? How do you get maximum exposure for your content? How do you generate leads? How do you get customers and get sales using LinkedIn organically? Organically, not through ads. Now, as a side note, that session's tomorrow morning, by the way. First thing, you want to make sure you're here for that. Start at 9:30. Now, what's interesting, and by the way, this is a big statement, but I believe that it will be true. I think, Sam, you and I could agree that the LinkedIn advertising platform is pretty crap at the moment. But here's why I believe it's going to get better, and I believe that over the next 10 years, it will become the new Facebook ads, or at least it will compete with it. Here's the reason. Raise your hand for me again if you're currently running or have run paid advertising on Facebook, either boosts or ads. Raise your hand for me nice and high on Facebook. Great. Raise your hand again for me if you've done it on LinkedIn. There's your answer. 4 people, well, me, 5 people in the room that have paid for advertising on LinkedIn. 10 years ago, if I'd have asked the same question about Facebook, I'd have got the same answer. That's why I believe it's going to tip. Because the competition on Facebook for paid advertising is so huge. So you've got to start looking elsewhere. And I believe for advertising, I believe LinkedIn will be big, and I believe YouTube could also be the same. This afternoon, we've got a session for you with David Walsh about YouTube. Not about YouTube paid advertising, about how to grow your organic reach on YouTube. David's clients get literally millions of views on their videos, spending 0 on advertising. He's going to show you this afternoon how to do that. By the way, just those 3 sessions I've told you about, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. How exciting is that for a start? Just those 3 sessions. Make some noise about that. And we haven't even talked about Tom Bilyeu yet. We haven't even talked about Carrie Green yet. We haven't even talked about Rob Moore. So my first prediction is that LinkedIn, I believe, over the next 10 years, will become the new king for businesses like ours. This is why I've made, over the last 6 months, 12 months, invested time and money and resource in these two platforms predominantly. We are still on Facebook. We're still advertising there. There's probably 20-25% of the people that are in this room came as a result of Facebook advertising. But I'm thinking next 10 years, not the next 12 months. That's my first prediction. The second prediction is based upon that the last 10 years, the last decade, it's all been about free. It's been about free events. It's been about free coaching sessions or consulting sessions. Free. And there's so much free that it's become overkill. Like getting people, just thinking about the events business. Raise your hand if you're either running events or you'd like to start running your own events as part of your expert business. All right, cool. So about half of you. So the events people, getting people to show up for your free event is getting more and more difficult because the market's saturated. So the show rate for a free event, you know, historically may have been somewhere between 30 and 50%. The show rate right now, average, is probably somewhere around 20%, which means you get 1,000 registrations to get 200 people in the room. You get 100 registrations to get 20 in the room. It's getting more and more difficult because the market's saturated with free. And my belief is that the reason for that is, first of all, there's a lot more of it, but second of all, the belief that people have now about free is that if it's free, maybe that's because it isn't very good. And so the change that I see over the next 10 years, it's happened already, by the way. Already you're seeing less free events. You're seeing people move towards a pay model. I believe, I don't mind saying, that we pioneered that in 2017 with Expert Empires. Everyone else said, by the way, Expert Empires 2017, the minimum ticket was £199 plus VAT. Everybody told me I was off my head. They went, but you've got all these free events you're competing with. Why would somebody come and pay 199, anything between 200 and 1,000 quid to attend this event? I went, here's why. Because it's fucking worth it. That's why they'll pay. We had over 600 people in that first ever Expert Empires event. So I believe that the change is moving towards paid for everything. It's not necessarily so much now about building a database of people that have given you their email address, in other words, in exchange for free. It's about getting paid customers. And tomorrow, Carrie's going to show you how she's built up a community of over 5,000 paying customers. By the way, that's not 5,000 people that have paid her money. That's 5,000 people that are paying her money every single month, month in, month out. So I believe that the trend is moving from free to paid. I could probably relate this to Facebook as well. You're not really getting much for your free on Facebook anymore. You need to start paying. And so investment in advertising is more likely to get you success on Facebook. So we're every single thing we put out organically on our page, we're now spending not huge sums, but we're putting money behind it to boost it, to get more eyeballs, to get more exposure. So I believe there's a big shift from free to paid. A, because it's been overdone, and B, because people associate more quality with paid. Then you've got to make sure you actually deliver quality, of course. That's definitely important. So, prediction number 2 is the death of free. I just see it dying. Like the free report, the free coaching session, the free event, I see it dying out. It's going to be substituted. I think over the next 10 years, you're going to see more and more pay to get in, to learn from people. Free content it's getting overdone. Let's talk about content. So the last 10 years has been about teaching content. You go on any social platform, it's all, right, get our free report, which I'll teach you the 7 biggest mistakes. Or 5 steps to become financially free through property. Or 3 tips for losing weight in the next 30 days. Whatever the thing is. It's all been led by content for the last 10 years. And I believe that the switch we're seeing is that people are less responsive to content because there's so much of it, and now they want stories. We talked about this last night at dinner when we did the Q&A with Andy and Carrie, and Andy was talking about using entertainment and emotion in your content. So rather than publishing a free report or running or having content on Facebook or any other platform that says, hey, here's the 5 steps to do this, or we've become, honestly, we've almost become like blind to it. There's so much of it. And so I believe where we're going is we're going much more towards stories that entertain and create emotion so that we can then teach content. I've been doing this a lot recently. If you've been reading my emails, you've been following me on social, you'll see a lot of my content is led with personal life experience. It's anecdotes about my friends and family. It's my hobbies. It's things that are going on in the business right now. But it's not led with, here are, we had one recently around 4 tips to generate better cash flow for your business. But it wasn't, here's an article about 4 tips to better cash flow for your business. Do you know what it actually was? It was a post, which also went out as an email, and the title of it was, The Sit Down We. Yeah, that level. But people are intrigued, it's entertaining, it's fun, it's light, it's different. You've got to find different angles. We've done loads. We did stories about my family, about my dad, about my granddad, about loads of different things. And it all leads to content. But you've got to start with those 2 things. Andy shared it last night. It's emotion and entertainment before education. Those are the 3 E's that Andy talked about last night. Emotion, entertainment, education. And I would suggest that you start with 1 or 2, and then you do number 3 called education. So people will want to and will respond better to stories over content now and in the next 10 years. That's prediction number 3. Prediction number 4 is around online funnels. Online funnels, landing pages, opt-ins, follow-up sequences, email marketing, all of this stuff that happens automatically. Online funnels to get people to spend a small amount of money, then a slightly bigger amount of money, and an even bigger amount of money. Again, look at, I know it's easy to say and it's commonly said, but look at the famous phrase, observe the masses, do the opposite. That's most of what we're talking about here. Here's what the masses are doing. It's on the left side of the screen. The masses are doing this. It's been working for the last 10 years. Less and less people are doing what's on the right side. So if you observe the masses and do the opposite, or at least do what they're doing and what's on the right side, you're going to win. So I believe that online funnels are going to be not replaced. I'm not saying there's not a part for them, a place for them. But I believe they're going to start to, people are going to be more and more likely to purchase and convert offline. Caveat to that statement, unless you're Amazon or someone like Amazon. Now, no one in this room is an Amazon. I genuinely believe that trust in our industry, in the expert industry, trust in coaches, consultants, speakers, trainers, authors, agencies, the level of trust out there has dropped significantly in the last 10 years. And so now, people are skeptical when they see online offers. They feel like they might be too good to be true. So I believe that offline conversion is going to be even more significant over the next decade. Here's some data for you. Of the tickets sold for this event, so look around the room, all the people here, 42.5% of the tickets that were purchased for this event were purchased online through our website. 57.5% of the tickets that were purchased for this event were through offline conversations, either in the room at events we've run or over the phone. More than half. Here's what that means. If we weren't focused on offline conversion, there'd be about half the amount of people in this room than there is today. Just let that sink in for a minute. If you're relying solely on online conversion, here'd be my tip for you. Start bringing offline, start bringing telesales, start bringing events where people can see you in face-to-face and meet you and shake your hand, and I think you'll double your sales. You'll double your sales. So prediction number 4 is that more and more sales will be made offline in the next 10 years. These are predictions for the expert industry, not the economy as a whole, the expert industry. That's why you're here at Expert Empires for these 2 days. The last 10 years, email marketing has reigned supreme. You could send an email out to your database and boom, just like magic, make a load of sales or get a load of inquiries. Raise your hand if you do email marketing in your business. You are doing email marketing. By the way, you should be doing email marketing and you should still do it for the next 10 years. I'm not saying don't do it. You should be doing email marketing. But those that do it will know that open rates, response rates to email marketing have dropped significantly. By the way, come back to people are going to want stories over content. You use stories, entertainment, emotion in your emails, and you're going to get a much better result than you're currently getting. But open rates are dropping down and down. Think about it this way. Even if you're not doing email marketing, how many emails do you get in your inbox a day on average? Just shout out the answer, roughly. Hundreds. Hundreds of emails. By the way, digital marketer, big agency in the US, Ryan Dice, who's a friend of mine, heads it up. Their research suggests that the average person in the Western world receives somewhere around 150 emails a day. 150 emails a day in their inbox. So can we agree that competition for attention in the email inbox is at an all-time high? Can we agree with that, yes or no? It's not going to get any better. It's only going to get more and more competitive. I'm not saying don't do email marketing, but here's where I think the next 10 years is going. And by the way, this week, I got a real-life example that convinces me I'm right with this. DMs, direct messaging. And by the way, I say DMs because it might not be Messenger. It might be SMS, text message. It might be WhatsApp. It might be email on LinkedIn. It might be Instagram direct message. So DMs as a whole. I'd already created this content for these 2 days, and a couple of days ago, something happened, and I was convinced I was right. I was listening to Radio 1. Yeah, I like to pretend that I'm younger than I am. I was listening to Radio 1. And I've been listening to Radio 1 for years, just when I want to chill out. I often listen to audiobooks and stuff when I'm in the car, but I wanted to chill out a little bit. So I was listening to Radio 1. And there was they were doing like a report on something, an event that had happened. They said, we'd love to hear your comments. Send us a WhatsApp voice note to this number, 07 blah, blah, blah. This is Radio 1. The way they want you to connect with them is through voice note in DM. 10 years ago, and I've been listening to Radio 1 that long, when Chris Moyles was doing the breakfast show, yeah, I was a big fan of Moyles. It was email us, if you remember. It was email us on, or email me on chris.moyles@Radio 1, whatever. Back then, I know when something's happening big when it goes mainstream. And if Radio 1 are saying, WhatsApp voice note us with your thoughts on this story, rather than 10 years ago they were saying email, the shift's already happened. And of course, it will be different platforms depending on who your customer is. It might be WhatsApp, it might be text message, it might be LinkedIn, email, it might be any of these things. But I'm not saying don't do email, but the conversations that happen in the DMs, that is where it's going to be at for the next 10 years. So, prediction number 5 is the death of email. Now, I say the death of email, it's still going to happen, but it's getting less and less effective, and it's only going in one direction. All right, next up. The last 10 years in the expert industry have been about selling and delivering courses. Online, I remember when I first started investing heavily in my education in this industry, spending $2,000 on digital courses. Well, back then there were boxes of DVDs. $2,000 a hit on a course. More recently, you'll see, if you look at everything on the left-hand side, basically I've looked at everything that's common. Facebook ad into free event. You'll get taught content. You'll probably have got there through an online funnel of some sort or email marketing, and then you're going to get sold a course. at a couple of grand or something. That's the normal funnel. You see it in property education, you see it in business growth, you see it in the health and fitness space. I'm not saying that courses aren't still going to be worth running and selling. My belief is that there's a shift that's already taken place and it will continue, which is people are going to invest less and less in courses and education and more in being part of communities. You can sell courses as part of your community. Carrie Green has built an incredible community called the Female Entrepreneur Association, over 5,000 members that are paying every month to be part of that community. That isn't a course that somebody takes. They're not in there for education. They are in there for education, but they're in there for a community. They're in there to connect. So Carrie's going to talk about how you can build an online community. Of course, Expert Empires and programs like our Mastermind is an offline community. And I think any thriving expert business should look to have both, online and offline communities. The offline community gives you a much deeper connection face-to-face. The online community gives you scale and reach beyond geographical restrictions. So you want to look at online and offline communities. So prediction number 6 is that your clients are now and will in the future value being part of a community over learning and going through courses to educate. My guess is that for many of you, this isn't the first event you've attended. You've probably been to others with me and many other people. And I just feel that like we've had the information age. It's over. There's so much information out there for free. There's so much content out there for free. People now, what they want is, they want a community, as this young lady said, to connect with people like them or connect with their ideal client so they can grow their business through community and implement the content, the information, the education they've had through those courses. Is this making sense, yes or no? So prediction number 6, your clients will value community over courses, and they also want the personal touch. So what I'm predicting, the last 10 years have been about automation. Automate everything. Use technology, use software to automate everything. Reduce the staff costs of your business. Reduce the need for people. Automate it. Systematize it. Have a process. I'm not saying that those things aren't valuable, of course. There's a certain degree of automation that we have in our business as well. But people are moving away from... raise your hand if you've ever raised a customer service ticket for like a service that you've purchased. Like you've gone through an automated phone system or a customer service ticket. Raise your hand if you've ever had that. Keep your hand in the air if it pisses you off having to deal with automation and machines and all that shit. People want the personal touch. And so it's not cheap. But I'm not talking about how you can reduce your costs here. I'm talking about how you can win over the next decade. So yes, there's a certain degree to which you'll need to automate. Of course there is. But people are going to want the personal touch. Those that invest in the personal touch are those that are going to win over the next decade. Final prediction is that the last 10 years have all been about conversion. It's all been about how can we convert the maximum amount of leads to customers? How can we get the maximum amount of new customers into our funnel, into our pipeline, so that we can upsell? The last 10 years has all been about conversion. It's been about testing your conversion ratios online. Again, all of these things down the left, they're all related. If you look at the typical expert business, most of them running Facebook ads to free events or free content where you're going to learn, here's a report, the 7 biggest mistakes, blah, blah, blah. You're going to go through an online funnel, including email marketing, to buy a course, and then you're going to get loads of automation to serve you rather than the personal touch, and then we're going to try and convert you more and more. That's been the trend for the last 10 years. Next 10 years is going to be about retention. Next 10 years is going to be about retention. I'm fairly well connected in this industry. I've been in it since I was 12 years of age. I know that the conversations that take place, I know from personal experience, the conversations that are taking place between the so-called gurus, and I use that term deliberately, is how can we maximize conversions? It's all they're obsessed with. No one gives a shit about retention, and I think they're wrong. I think they're missing a trick. And I'll tell you why, conversions are dropping. Conversions are dropping. People are getting wise to the old school hard sell marketing tactics. So conversions are dropping. And because nobody's got their eye on the ball on retention, those that do will win. And they'll win big. I got some data recently. I did some research of our industry. And because our flagship program is called the Expert Empires Mastermind. And I was doing some research to look at what we were doing compared to the industry standard or average. And what I discovered was that the average retention rate of somebody in a mastermind or a group coaching program is somewhere between 10 and 20%. In other words, let's say for argument's sake, as is a 12-month program, it's a 12-month coaching or group coaching or mentoring or mastermind program. If it's a 12-month program, at the end of the 12 months, between 10 and 20% of people renew. That is all. They're losing 80 to 90% of their customers every year. And the reason they're doing it is because they're obsessed with everything on the left side. They're obsessed with conversion, with new customers, with how can we sell more stuff to more people. And they're not investing time and energy and money and resource in service and in retention. So I was quite pleased when I discovered that our retention rate for Mastermind is 74%. 74% of people at the end of year one renew for a second year. And that tells me that what we've been doing, and by the way, these are things that, this is the first time I've ever shared these predictions in this presentation ever. Never shared it before. But I've been thinking about and doing this stuff for the last couple of years. We've invested heavily in retention, in service, in quality of product when it comes to our mastermind program, and now we have 74% retention. What does that mean? It means I don't need to sell as many things. I don't need as many new customers. I don't need to be obsessed with conversion and hard sell because I'm retaining 74% anyway. As long as I'm bringing on a handful of new clients every so often, we're growing anyway without having to do any of that shit on the left side. Does this all make sense, yes or no? Yes. Good. So my prediction number 8, to wrap this up, is those with the best retention will win. Yes, you've got to invest in lead generation. Yes, you've got to invest in customer acquisition. Of course you have. But don't be so foolish as to have it disproportionate to retention. I'd be looking to invest equally as much in retention and service and quality of delivery as I would in lead generation and customer acquisition. So I've got one final thought for you as we bring this presentation to a close. And that is this. The expert industry, the coaches, consultants, speakers, trainers, authors, agencies, it's getting more and more competitive. It's getting more and more saturated. Like, let's just take a little poll for a second here in this room. Raise your hand if you're an expert in something related to growing your business. In other words, marketing, sales, you're a business coach, like there's some kind of growth of business. The people that are your customers are business owners and you help them to grow their business some way, shape or form. Raise your hand nice and high. Nice and high for me. Keep them in the air. Look around the room. That's your competition. That's probably a third of the room is your competition. Let me ask a different question. Raise your hand if your expertise helps people to grow wealth, like you're an expert in maybe property or investing or becoming financially free or being better with finances and cash and money. Raise your hand if you're in that business, that game. Raise your hand nice and high. Again, look around the room. Plenty of competition. What about if you're in the, I'm going to call it the less measurable space of better life, health, fitness, relationships, be more fulfilled, that kind of stuff. Raise your hand if you're in that space. Look around the room. Look at the competition. It's just in this room. So here's my final thought. Extreme is the only way you are going to win in the next 10 years. Extreme is the only way that you are going to win in the next 10 years. If everyone else is doing free, go premium. By the way, if everyone else is going like super expensive in your industry, do something free that's never been done before. Observe the masses in your industry, do the opposite. Rob Moore, who's speaking tomorrow, his whole brand is built around disrupting the industry. He's called the Disruptive Entrepreneur. That's the name of his podcast. He disrupts. He says things no one else will say. That's why he's become successful. 10 years ago, Gary Vaynerchuk started putting out content when everyone else was saying, it's easy, get rich quick, just install this software and you'll magically have a load of leads, just press this button and you'll get rich overnight trading the markets and all that crap. Gary Vaynerchuk started saying something no one had ever said. He said, it's fucking hard work and you'd be better prepared to play the long game for years and years and years. And no one else was saying that. And it disrupted the market. He was extreme. Also, don't lose sight of who you are. Don't lose sight of you. Because being extreme does not mean be Gary Vaynerchuk or Grant Cardone. Not everyone is as naturally charismatic as a Gary Vaynerchuk or a Grant Cardone. But everyone can be extreme. Let's say you're a geek. Who are my geeks in the room? Come on, geeks. Who are my geeks? Right. So be the biggest fucking geek you possibly can. Be an extreme geek if there's such a thing. Like, you've got to find ways to disrupt the market, to be different. Expert Empires, when we created it back at the start of 2017, the idea was the year before, was designed to disrupt the market. Everyone else is free, we're going to go paid. Everyone else is hard sell, we're going to go content rich. I observed the masses, did the opposite. I got one final little story for you, because it's easy, and I know because I've done it, it's easy to fall into the trap of fitting in and trying to be somebody you're not. Raise your hand, brutal honesty, if you know that at some level you've shown up, whether it's how you've delivered on social media, through video, through content, on stage. Raise your hand if you know deep down that you've played it a bit safe at times to try and fit in because you want everyone to like you. Right. We've all done it. I've got a specific example. Start of last year, we ran an event. Grant Cardone was the headline speaker. I took advice from my peers in the industry and some advice that I was given. And by the way, you should consult with people that know more than you do. And so I consulted with my peers in the industry. I said, how can I deliver an even better event that maximizes sales, that's commercially viable, that serves? How can I get all of it? They went, Nick, you're too accessible. You're too visible. You're out there all the time with the people. You're too social. You're too readily available. And because of that, you're suffering and not generating as many sales as you could. Because if you're less accessible, people will want more of you. So, and by the way, I think this is smart. I tested it. So Expert Empires, the start of 2018, Grant Cardone was the headline speaker. I deliberately and consciously, for the whole 2 days, made myself less accessible. I wasn't as available in the breaks. I was sat in the green room away from people. I didn't engage. I left the Empire party early. Didn't spend as much time there in the middle night. So I withdrew from the people. And you know what? I was fucking miserable. Because I was trying to do what everyone else does. So be extreme, but don't forget to be you. I promised myself at the end of that event that I would never do that again. I went, this isn't me. This is what everyone else tells me to do, what everyone else says I should do. This isn't me. And I promised myself that I'd never do that again. In fact, the next event, I was even more accessible than I'd ever been. I made a point of being available, taking questions, being in the, in the audience in the breaks, being at lunches, being at dinners, just being out there. You know what? I had the best time at that event. You know what? We made more sales than we'd ever made before in a single event. And I wasn't even trying. So extreme, I think, will probably be a theme throughout the next 2 days for you. This next section has really been developed. I suppose you could argue that this has been developed over the last, 24 years that I've been studying and been around the expert industry since I went to Tony Robbins at 12 years of age, spent my teenage years studying NLP and going to events, most of the time dragged along by my mum. But what I didn't realize at the time was I was learning far more than I could have ever been taught directly, just by being in the environment. And what I've realized over the last 24 years, and more recently over the last 10 or 11, is that there are 3 phases of building an expert empire. You can't skip a step. I've seen over the years so many people try and fail. So here's how this came about. When I first created Expert Empires a couple of years ago, I went, right, okay, so if I'm going to teach people how to build an expert empire, I'd better, I started thinking to myself, well, first few questions. First one was, what have I done repeatedly? By the way, I've now started and grown 4 businesses in the expert space. The first of which I told you about earlier. I was a freelance copywriter selling time for money. Then that kind of morphed and developed into my second business, which was a training company. So we were running small niched workshops on subjects like how to write copy, how to run webinars, how to build a list. So we'd run these small niched workshops. And I also started at that point to turn it into something that resembled me as a kind of consultant. I had some private clients as well. So that was the second business. That got up to mid-6 figures in terms of annual sales. The third business was an agency. So myself and my then business partner, yes, we used events as the front of the business because that's what we both knew and what I was experienced in. But effectively, the core business was an agency. So we would build funnels, web pages, write copy for our clients. So it was an agency business. That became a multi-7-figure business. And of course, then we've got the business that you see in front of you today, Seriously Fun Business, which runs Expert Empires, Mastermind, etc., which again in itself is a multi-7-figure business. So I asked myself, what have I done on those 4 occasions that's worked? What have the commonalities been? And not only that, but looking outside of what I've done, also look at what my clients have done. And what are the commonalities between the most successful people in our industry? Raise your hand if you believe that the fastest way to success is to model those who have already achieved the result you want to get. Raise your hand if you believe that to be true. So really, this whole philosophy that I'm about to give you is based on modeling and from personal experience. So there are 3 phases of building an expert empire. And the reason I think you're going to find this particularly valuable, I hear a lot, maybe at the dinner last night, those that I've spoke to already today, I hear a lot of, I've been to a lot of trainings, I've learned a lot of tactics. I've learned a lot of how to do Facebook ads, how to write great copy, how to make videos, how to generate leads, how to set. I've learned a lot of how to. But what I often hear is the problem is that it can be really overwhelming. And I wake up each morning and I've got 1,000,001 things on my plate or in my mind, and I don't really know what to prioritize. I don't really know what to do and when to do it. So my outcome really of this section is to prescribe to you based on what level of business you're at currently or what stage you're at in the journey, to prescribe to you, here are the most important things. So you can prioritize all the information, education you've had, prioritize it into, right, these are the things that I need to do. Here's the structure that I need to follow in order to take my business from 0 to full-time income, or from full-time income to multi-six figures in sales, or multi-six figures in sales to 7 figures or beyond. So, as I said, there's 3 phases. The first one I call the 50K formula. So this is the collection of strategies, tools, techniques, tactics that I've developed to get you from, and again, 50K is, it's not an exact science, but from like 0, you're not making any money yet, you haven't got any paying clients, to I'm making 50 grand a year, which of course isn't huge, it's not enough to retire on, but it's at least I'm making a living. That's the first phase. The second phase is once you've got that foundation, the next phase is then what I call the 6-figure system. This is how do you take that maybe 4,000, 5,000 a month regular income. One of the problems I hear a lot from those who are in the early stages is that it's all feast and famine. It's like 1 month, I've had a really good month, maybe made 3, 4, 5 grand in sales, cash come in. Next month, like a few £100. And then the month after that, maybe only 1,000. And then next month, it's like 5 grand again. And it's feast and famine and peak and trough, and you don't really know what's coming next. There's no consistency to it. So the 50K formula is designed to give you consistency in terms of lead flow, in terms of sales, in terms of income. Once you've got that consistency, then you can build. So the 6-figure system is the collection of tools and tactics and techniques and strategies that will allow you to get to 100, 200, 300,000 pounds a year in annual sales. After that, the £1 million method is how do you get from that kind of 100, 200, 300,000 a year, and how do you build it up to £1 million a year or more in annual sales? And again, how you do that is completely different to how you get started. One of the things that I see a lot is people are trying to run before they can walk. I said it earlier, think big, think huge, but start small. So if you're in the early stages, I would suggest think big, start small. Follow what I'm about to show you, use this formula to get yourself off the ground. The other reason, like I said, a lot of people will try and run before they can walk. The other reason I think this is crucial is because the risks it takes, financial and otherwise, to get to be a 7-figure business quick, the odds are just stacked against you. Now, you could probably, if you really wanted to, you could find exceptions to what I'm going to share with you in the next 45 minutes. You could find exceptions, but they are just that. They're exceptions, not the rule. So wouldn't it make more sense to go with tried and tested? The thing that gives you an almost guaranteed success rate rather than trying to be the anomaly, which is exactly what this is all about. So there's 5 different areas or disciplines that we're going to talk about, and depending on what level of business you're at right now will depend upon what you will use tactically in each of those 5 areas. So I'll explain more now. The first area that you want to look at as an expert, remember, if you're a coach or a consultant, a speaker, a trainer, an author, maybe you run an agency, the success of your business, or your business really, is based upon your expertise, then the first thing you've got to look at is your profile. How are you perceived in the market? And how can we raise that profile so that you've got status, so that you're known, you become the obvious choice for people who are your ideal client to work with? So profile comes first, and to get to that first kind of, on that first step of the journey, in other words, you're consistently bringing in £4,000 or £5,000 a month. The key really to get there in terms of your profile is to become a specialist. A specialist. Raise your hand if you've been told before, probably on more than one occasion, that you need to niche your products and services. Raise your hand if you've been told in the past that it's a good idea to niche your products, your services, become a specialist. Right. So there's nothing new about this. Raise your hand, and I'd appreciate your honesty if you've battled with this. You've had this internal battle around niche versus but I don't want to go too niche because then I'll be missing out. I can see people smiling and laughing already, so I know that you resonate with you. So that you've battled with this niche thing, and so maybe you haven't committed yet, or if you have, you haven't committed fully to it. Just raise your hand if you can relate to that as well. Right, yeah, a good number of you. So what I'm going to give you now very briefly, because, by the way, this is relevant for the first 2 steps. So to get from 0 to full-time income, absolutely you've got to become a specialist. The only difference to get to 6 figures is you've then got to elevate that profile to that of what I call an expert. But effectively, the foundational principles of both are the same. So what I'm going to give you now are, here are the 3 things, well, 3.5, I've added 1, 3 things that you can do to be a specialist and position yourself as an expert. In other words, I don't call it this, but how to actually niche. Because everyone talks about it, but no one actually tells you how to do it. So there's 3 things that you can do to become an expert, and it could be a combination of all 3. The first question you want to ask yourself, you might want to write this down in your notes, is who specifically am I targeting, or who specifically is my product, or my services, or my events, my content? Who specifically is it aimed at? In other words, what group of people am I targeting, or what group of people am I appealing to? Second question, and then I'm going to give you a load of examples because I want to get your brain turning over and give you some ideas. Those of you that haven't yet nailed it, my hope for you, or my intention for this session, is that you can get this nailed. The amount of people I've worked with over the years who they've agonized over this niche thing for weeks, months, some cases even years. And I go, look, you're better off just making the decision and going all in on it for a few months. Within a few months, you're going to get the feedback whether or not you've made the right call. But what I do know is not making the decision is just prolonging the agony, if you like. It's just, there's no way you're going to get there any faster. So the second question is, and it helps if you've identified who the group of people are first, is what's the biggest pain or problem that you're helping them solve? Again, I'm going to give you examples of these 3 things together in a moment, so hopefully it'll bring it to life for you. But what is the biggest pain or what's the biggest problem that you can help them solve? And then third thing is, what's the promise? Or you could say, what's the result that they want more than anything? What's the result that they want more than anything? And it is fairly difficult to do this if you haven't answered the first question. So where I'd go first, if it was me sat here doing this exercise, I'd go first to who specifically am I trying to appeal to here? What group of people are my people? What's their biggest problem or their pain that I can help them solve? And what's the result they want instead? What's the thing they want more than anything? What promise can I make them? So those are the 3 different parts. I want to give you a few examples now to bring this to life and hopefully get the cogs turning a bit in your brain. So this is Charlotte DeZorga. Charlotte, by the way, is there anyone here, maybe not be that many, but anyone here who, you feel like your niche or maybe the thought or the idea you've got for a niche is a bit bizarre? A bit quirky, a bit weird, a bit different? Yeah, a handful of you. Okay, cool. So, good. I'm pleased for those that raised their hands. The rest of you, you need to go more out there, be more extreme. Charlotte mentors belly dancers. You can't even believe that's a thing, can you? You can't believe there's a business in it. So her people, she's got a small audience of people, belly dancers. Because it's belly dancers, she goes, what are their biggest pains or problems? Performance anxiety, their thoughts around their body, things like that. Technique as well, like they're struggling with technique. So she's got all these things they really struggle with. What do they want instead? They want to be able to perform at their best, and they want to get cast in productions. By the way, these are not professionals. These are women, mostly. I don't believe she's had any male clients, but women that want to, it's a hobby for them. They want to be amateur belly dancers, get cast in productions because they enjoy it. It's a hobby. That right there is a £50,000 a year business. Or it was last year. This year it's going to be even more. Mentoring belly dancers. Everyone else is out there going, I'm going to be a life coach or a business coach. And they're like competing with every other damn life coach or business coach on the planet. Charlotte has no competition. No one else is doing this. No one else is mentoring belly dancers. So she got really clear on who the market was, so she could speak their language. She knows what the pains are and what they want instead. That's one example. Here are a bunch more. These are people, some of whom you've met already today on stage. These are all members of various different mastermind programs that we run. So, Ian Luckett, business coaching, he already told you, for IT professionals, for IT experts. So it's business coaching, and he even said, he told you the story, he said, you know, business coaching was making $1,000, $2,000 a month, kind of struggling a bit. As soon as he went all in on IT professionals, IT business owners, all of a sudden, things went crazy. He's now doing 12, 15 grand a month for me, which is effectively, it is just business coaching. But he's decided who it's for, which means he can speak their language, he can solve their problems, and he knows what they want instead. Paul Mort. Just look at him. Paul Mort. He works with married men that own businesses. That's it. How many people out there, do you think, are trying to do the kind of thing that Paul does? It's a collection of mindset and be your best and physical fitness, and it's all of these things together. It is, and I don't think Paul would mind me saying, it's quite generic what he does, but there's no one else doing it for married businessmen. So he's got that group of people. He knows married businessmen have got a very specific set of pains and problems and challenges. He also knows that there are a certain set of results that they really want. Those are his promises. Makes it much easier for him. Lucien. Where's Lucien? Did you know you didn't know you were going to be on the screen, did you? So Lucien works with, I'm going to do it an injustice. Who do you work with? Frustrated female executives who want a life to love. Nice. Give a round of applause for that. Here's the thing. Lucien's a coach. Her audience is not everyone. I am not a frustrated female executive. Many of you in this room are not frustrated female executives. Here's the thing. Raise your hand for me for a second if you can think of somebody who you know, I'm not saying they necessarily work with Lucien, but that is a female executive. And they may be frustrated from time to time. Just raise your hand if you can think of somebody. Raise your hand nice and high. Look around the room. You're welcome, Lucien. So the point is, because she's got clarity on message, she knows who she's helping, their pain, their problems. She knows what the result is they want to get. Now, when she speaks to a group of people, she speaks on stage at an event, like Ian did earlier, you guys know someone who's an IT professional, they want to improve their business, you're going to take them to Ian. They're going to send business to Lucien. Her business is only a few months old, and she's already generating multiple thousands of pounds a month. This is David and Matt. David and Matt, they're actually not here over these 2 days. They're in our 6-figure mastermind program, and David and Matt specialize, they're effectively property coaches, for want of a better expression, but they would never say that's what they do, because they specialize in teaching people how to do serviced accommodation, which is a niched property strategy. And it's particularly effective, as Camilla would, of course, because that's the same market that you serve. It's particularly effective for people that are maybe not sitting on huge chunks of money to invest, but they can get into property without spending loads of money or investing lots, and they can get cash flow. So David and Matt do really well out of that. Property education is highly competitive. If you go out there and just say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to be wealthy through property, you're going to lose. That market has already been dominated by many, many other people. David Walsh mentioned Samuel Leeds, Rob Moore, who's coming to speak tomorrow from Progressive Property. So in order to compete with these people, you've got to go in with something different and be a specialist. Finally, Sam Raffling, who you're going to hear from tomorrow. Of course, Sam, what does Sam do? Really, if you took all the detail out, you'd go, really what she does is she helps businesses generate more leads. That's really what she does. But like, how many other people are there out there, how many other businesses are out there that help businesses generate more leads? Loads. But she's positioned herself as she's the only one that helps them generate more leads through LinkedIn specifically. That's the thing that she's the queen of. So can you see how becoming a specialist will help you attract more clients? Does that make sense so far, yes or no? Cool, we're in that post-lunch kind of lull, aren't we, a little bit? So, first stage, if you're going to get to full-time income, become a specialist, who's it for? What's the biggest pains, the biggest problems? What result or what promise can you make them? What do they want instead? And to become an expert, I'd say the distinction between specialist and expert is really just, it's probably a combination of time in the saddle and volume of content that you've produced. You could become a specialist today. You could become a specialist today just with one decision. To start saying, I help frustrated female executives to live a life they love. That's becoming a specialist. You do not need to have written a book to be able to say that. You do not need to have made loads of videos and content to be able to say that. You make a decision, you say it, all of a sudden you're positioned as a specialist. You start attracting business towards you. To become an expert, again, start creating some content. You then need to just raise your profile a bit. And of course, to get to 7 figures, to become, using the £1 million method, you then need to elevate your profile to the status of what I call authority. Authority. Which, by the way, might mean broadening out a bit. So when I started, I went, right, I'm going to specialize. I'm going to be the only person that writes copy, creates sales letters and email campaigns and marketing materials for NLPers and coaches. Nobody else. I specialized in like that. And as my business grew, and I realized that niche was almost too small to get me to 7 figures, I had to broaden out. So to get 7 figures, we had to start talking about how to do webinars, how to build lists, how to use social media. And so I had these multiple niche workshops in order to get 7 figures. But to start off with, it was one thing, it was focused. What are some ways, you tell me, what are some ways that you could, or some strategies you could deploy to raise your profile to that of an authority? What do you think? Clue number 1 is, it's in the word, authority. You could become an author, you can write a book. That's one way to become an authority. What else could you do? Public speaking, raise your profile to that of an authority. So, by the way, my number 1 strategy for raising my profile to authority was to run my own events and associate myself with people, speakers, who already have worldwide authority. That was my number 1 strategy. Because, by the way, that's the thing that I know best. So my strategy to become an authority was built around what am I world class at and what do I know better than anyone. It would have been, quite frankly, stupid of me to go, right, I want to become an authority. I'm going to do that by starting a podcast. I don't know how the hell to do a podcast. It would have been stupid of me to say, right, I'm going to become an authority by trying to get in the mainstream media on TV. I wouldn't know where to start. So I created everything you see now based on, I built my authority through running events, because that's what I know well. So I went all in on that strategy. So that's the first piece, profile. Second thing, so that's really how you're seen in the market. Second thing is promotion. So now we're talking about how do you actually promote yourself and get leads? How do you generate leads, generate inquiries? Again, when you're starting out, early days, those of you that aren't yet at the point when you're making a consistent and predictable full-time income, networking. I know it sounds old school. Getting out. I started the business as a freelance copywriter. I specialized in, I'm going to be the only copywriter that serves NLPers and coaches. I bought a ticket to every event I could find that was for NLPers and coaches. In the breaks, people say, so what do? I say, I am the only copywriter who specializes in helping NLPers and coaches. They go, wow, that's exactly what I need. I'm rubbish at writing copy. I'm rubbish at creating marketing. You could really help me. I just pulled loads of clients by specializing and then putting myself in the environment through networking. I guess alongside actual in-person networking, I'd also put networking online, social media. So again, ask yourself, once you're clear on who it's for, who your client is, what Facebook groups could you go and be a part of? How could you leverage Instagram or LinkedIn or YouTube as well to connect, to network? Remember what I said earlier, direct messaging is probably the most, right now I'd say it's the most powerful way, especially when you're getting started, to reach out, generate leads and turn them into customers. I know there's a number of people in the room, because I know you personally, that have built six-figure businesses on that. Literally not doing anything over the top, not doing anything complex whatsoever, just specialist, online networking, DMs. Camilla, I know that's exactly what you've done pretty much. It's all social media and then DMs. Six-figure business right there. Now, that will get you so far. In order to get to six figures, multi-six figures, you then need to do what I would call campaigning. So running marketing campaigns so that you can effectively market to the masses. The restriction with networking is it only really works when you're out there doing it. You're putting in the hours. It's labor intensive and it isn't scalable. Campaigns are scalable. But even then, my advice would be that until you get to the stage of kind of like mid six figures, 500,000 a year and beyond, one campaign a month is sufficient. The reason why most people suffer and struggle and fail to get to mid six figures is because they're trying to do too many damn things at the same time. So one campaign a month is easily enough because it gives you focus and it also gives your audience clarity. There's no confusion for them as to, right, here's what you got, here's what it'll do for them, here's what they need to do next to work with you or to get the result they want. So campaign once a month, which again could include email campaign, social media campaigns, but one at a time, not trying to do too much all at the same time. Here's a great example. So Gordon Bertram, he's been mentioned already. In fact, Gordon's a great example of everything I spoke about so far. He's a business coach, but he specializes in the martial arts sector. So all of his clients are martial arts school owners. Interestingly, that is not the biggest market in the UK. In fact, I don't know if Gordon's in the room. There are single-figure thousands. How many martial arts schools in the UK, Gordon? Yeah, about 10,000. So his entire audience, potential client base is 10,000 people. That's not huge. Now, what he could have said is, well, it's only 10,000 and, you know, I want to help millions of people, so I'm going to be a business coach that can help all businesses. And he'd have got nowhere fast. So because he's a specialist and because he runs these campaigns focused one at a time, he's managed to do things like run the only business event for martial arts schools in the UK. I spoke at the first one he ran. I think there was 70 odd people there. That was a few years ago. Now he gets 100 plus every single time he runs these events. It's also turned into quite a nice revenue generator for him on this, as well as his martial arts school. So, I mean, this is an old post, but like Gordon was doing, 20, 25 grand a month consistently. This was probably a year, 2 years ago. It's grown significantly since because he uses his marketing campaigns to fill his events or to fill his online trainings. He's got an online mastermind as well, so martial arts schools all over the country can take advantage of his expertise. The power of specializing and of campaigning. If you're going to get to 7 figures, and so this is for people like the young lady over here that asked earlier, you've got to start mass marketing, which, by the way, means investing money in ads. It means running multiple campaigns at once. It's just difficult. And again, this comes from personal experience and observing where people have struggled in the market. It's very complicated. It's very difficult, I suppose, for you to get to 7 figures just doing one campaign at a time. You'd need to do some massive campaigns to get there. All right, next up, let's talk about products or services, what you're selling. Like, what are you actually selling? Again, big mistake I see people make is they'll go out and start a business selling a very low-priced product. A very low-priced product, which means you need to get, I mean, put it this way. If you were selling something for £50, you need a hell of a lot of customers. A hell of a lot of customers in order to make a full-time income. Whereas if you've got something that's £500 or £1,000, you don't need that many customers. If it's £1,000 per client, you need 50 clients throughout the year. You need a client a week. That's achievable. If you're charging £50 per client or £50 per product you're selling, you need a lot of clients, a lot of customers to make that make sense. So my advice for somebody just getting started is that you start off, by the way, with one single product or service. Again, big mistake I see people make is they've got again, the terminology is widely used. They're using a funnel and they've got a £5 or a $7 seems to be the magic number for a tripwire product. It's like a low ticket thing. Get lots of people to buy that. Then they've got their $97 thing. Then they've got their more expensive thing. And you need a lot of clients to come through that to make a full-time living. So my advice is have a single product and that it should be priced at an absolute minimum of £500. If it's less than that, it's very challenging, very difficult to get that consistency of income that we've talked about. It could be more than £500. If you were, let's say you were doing coaching programs one-to-one. If you're doing coaching programs one-to-one, then I'd suggest that you charge a minimum of £500 per month per client. You're charging £500 a month, you need like, what, 8, 9, 10 clients, and you make 50 grand a year. That's a full-time income. Then you can build on top. Then you can start adding, you can start doing more complex campaigns. You can start adding different products. So to get to 6 figures, you'd then start adding different products on top. So you'd need, I'd say 3 is a good number, 3 different types of products or service you could offer, and that one of them needs to be priced at least £2,000. Again, I'm not saying it's impossible to have a 6-figure business without having a product that's £2,000. What I'm telling you from experience is it's difficult. Makes it a lot easier if you've got some high-ticket offers to go with everything else you're doing. And then finally, if you're going to get to 7 figures, again, you'll need multiple products or services, so not just one thing. And really, to make it easy on yourself, the top one needs to be a minimum of £10,000 investment. All right, next up. Let's talk about how you actually sell it, or how you pitch, we should say. So how you sell it or how you pitch. So when you're starting out, one-to-one, get on the phone, get out to meetings, get to events, sit down with people face-to-face and sell them and close them yourself. You don't need, again, a lot of people, they'll start trying to do webinars, or they'll start trying to do events, or marketing funnels, and all this kind of stuff. It's just not necessary when you're getting started. The amount of time I see people waste money and time, which you can never get back, on building all these things out, only for them to fall flat. Start off with, get out there, one-to-one. Matt's going to do a session tomorrow afternoon for you specifically about how you can have those conversations and maximize your conversion. Here's a great example. So Shari Teigman, she's one of our 6-figure masterminders based in New York. So hence the colorful language in the message she sent me. So 2 things that Shari did. By the way, she had a large number of customers that were all paying a small amount of money. So the first thing we did to grow a business, we went, right, we need a high-ticket item. So we created something that was $6,000 US. Used a very simple campaign. So we got focused on 1 month, 1 campaign. And, well, you can see from the messages she sent, she did 3 clients at $6,000 US in a week, a 4th just a little bit later. So that was $24,000 US cash in 10 days. This is in a bit, that's more than like 6 months worth of business in 10 days. But the bit that was missing is she didn't have a big ticket. She didn't have anything that people could spend more than a few £100s on or a few $100s on. So by having that bigger price, and also, of course, by selling it one-to-one, that was what she was doing. She was getting people, using the campaign we gave her, onto a discovery call where she could sell and close one-on-one. If you're going to get 6 figures, though, just one-on-one conversations, one-on-one selling, one-on-one closing won't get you there. It won't get you beyond 6 figures. It won't get you to multi-6 figures. So you then need to adopt a one-to-many strategy. So one-to-many, you tell me, what are some ways that you could sell your products and services in a one-to-many fashion? Say again? Digital course, so that would be delivered one-to-many, wouldn't it? And you could sell that digital course online through your website. So effectively, you create the website, write the copy or shoot the video, and then you can send people, you can send traffic to it. So that one piece of work you did one time, creating the video, writing the copy, sells to many all at once. What else could you do to sell your products and services one-to-many? What else could you do? Speaking, so you could speak on stage at other events. You could run your own seminars, workshops, and conferences. You could absolutely do that. What else? Email marketing would be a way of selling one-to-many as well. So again, probably driving people to a website, buy online. What else? Webinars. Great. I think webinars for me are a great way of you testing selling one-to-many without taking huge risks. Like if you're going to start running events and you've never done it before, like you've got venue costs, the marketing costs tend to be more, it's more difficult to get people to buy the ticket because they've actually got to get off their arse and come, which I know intimately. So like getting people in a room is infinitely more difficult than it is getting people on a webinar. So a webinar is a great format or a great platform to test your one-to-many offering. So one-to-many gets you to 6 figures and beyond. Here's a great example of this. Claire McTurnan does business coaching. Again, not dissimilar to, I guess, someone like Gordon or Ian. Business coaching, but specifically serves service-based businesses, so like web designers, agencies, that kind of crowd. She was doing all one-to-one stuff. Now, Claire doesn't really like speaking. She doesn't really like speaking on stage in front of large amounts of people. So what we did was had her do a small, what I call discovery day type event. She had like 6 people turn up, and 5 of them signed up for coaching. £3,000 a kickback then this was. It's a lot higher now. So like she's managed to get 15 grand by selling one-to-many in a day. Wouldn't have been able to do that doing one-to-one. So going one-to-many allows you to get 6 figures. If you're going to get 7 figures, you need to adopt what I call a many-to-many strategy. Many-to-many strategy. So what does that mean? So many-to-many is you've got, it's not just you, one-to-many. There are many different ways for you to get the sales message to many different people or the pitch in front of many different people. So here's a few ways you can do it. 1, telesales. We got a team of 4 telesales people in our office full-time. They can make 100+ calls a day each. So we can have 400 people a day be contacted without me having to do anything, because we've got many people that can speak to and sell to many people a day. Other ways of doing it might be affiliate marketing. So getting people that have got the ability to get to many and get a bunch of them doing the marketing and the selling for you. So many-to-many will allow you to scale your sales or your pitching operation. Without that, it's very difficult to get up to that kind of 7-figure, multi-7-figure level. Is this all making sense so far, yes or no? Good. Finally, let's talk about personnel or your team, your people. So, your team or your people. When you're starting out, and again, I could summarize all the mistakes I see people make in the early days in one hit. When you're starting out, and I can't tell you how many times I've seen this, especially, by the way, when people are starting a new business and they have money. I think it was Ian said earlier, he went, like, those of you that have got a safety blanket, have got savings or a chunk of money there to support you, burn it. Now, that might have been extreme, Ian. I'm not sure that was great advice. I wouldn't burn it. But the point I think he was making is good, which is often when people are starting a business and they've got capital, they get loose with it. So they'll go out and get a new office and spend a load of money on branding and website and staffing. And before you know it, they're tens of thousands, sometimes even hundreds of thousands of pounds invested before they've actually started running the business, before they've got a client. So for me, when you're starting out, it's just you. And that's okay. That's completely appropriate. It's just you. Maybe some of you can relate. In your business, you are sales rep, marketing department, finance manager, customer service, dealing with incoming emails and inquiries, toilet attendant. Raise your hand if this is familiar to you. Either now or sometime in the past, you've had this. Right, and there's nothing wrong with that when you're starting out. That's how it should be. Investing money in staffing when you're starting out is insanity. Prove that the business can generate income first before you reinvest it. Think about it this way. Those of you that have been to our trainings and events before will have seen this, I'm sure. So think about it this way. Imagine there are 3 types of task that you could be doing in your business at any time. Let's call them £10, £100, and £1,000 tasks. I'm not sure everyone can see that, so I'm going to do my best to turn it around. In fact, I'm just going to do it on the other side. So £10, £100, and £1,000 tasks. Now, if you are starting out, it is completely appropriate that you should be doing everything. So let me qualify. A £10 task is something that, in theory, it's low skill, doesn't really need to be you doing it, and in theory, you could, and the numbers are kind of irrelevant, but you could pay somebody £10 an hour to do it for you. So it's low skill, but necessary. I got a thumbs up from one of my guys at the back of the room. He's going, yeah, that's my job, doing the £10 tasks. So a £10 task is something that anybody could do. You can recruit for it. But when you're starting out, you need to be doing it. £100 takes some skill, takes some expertise. So in our business, £10 tasks are like admin, responding to emails, prepping for events. So like, the name badges and getting the letters out and the tickets out in the post. All that stuff's £10 task stuff. It's important to your business. And when you're starting out, you need to be doing all that stuff yourself. When I first started, I remember me and my wife doing our first direct mail campaign, sat there in the lounge, stuffing envelopes. No staff, just us. £100 tasks are things that take some skill. So this might be creating, like maybe writing copy could be a £100 task. Depends how good you are at it, I suppose. Building web pages, running ads, design work, building web pages. Those, in my business, those are £100 tasks. Things that I could get somebody else to do, but I can't get just anyone to do. So it's skilled. It needs some degree of expertise. £1,000 tasks are things that you are uniquely qualified to do. Nobody else can or should do them. So in our business, that's creating content, delivering from stage for me. It's serving our high-level clients. So all these are things... It is create, as a few of the speakers have mentioned already, it would be creating like video content, that kind of thing. These are £1,000 tasks. So here's the point that I'm making. When you're getting started, you absolutely need to be doing all of those things. The mistake people make, there's 2 mistakes actually. Mistake number 1 is they put all their focus and attention on £10 tasks. They get bogged down in the detail and the day-to-day grind of the business, and they neglect the £100 and the £1,000 tasks. So, like, their accounts are good, and their service is good, and everything gets responded to real quick, but they're not making any sales. They're not creating new things. The other mistake I see is that people are only doing this. All they want to do is sell. And high end, and all they want to do is create content and videos and value and do stuff on social and all that kind of good stuff, but they neglect the £10 tasks. The biggest mistake I see of all, especially in the early days, is that the £100 tasks don't get done at all. And by the way, that is where all the money is made. So my suggestion, my advice is that when you're starting out, split your time evenly between £10, £100 and £1,000 tasks. So a third of your time here, a third of your time here, a third of your time here when you're starting out. If you're going to get to 6 figures and multi-6 figures, you're going to need to start outsourcing some stuff, maybe recruiting a part-time member or 2 of staff, or maybe a VA. their job, their role, is everything that sits in this category here in £10 tasks. So the first hire you should make, if you haven't already made it yet, but you're edging towards 6 figures, the hire you make now is somebody to do the £10 tasks. Andy Harrington put it beautifully last night when we were at dinner. He said, your first hire is a Swiss Army knife. Somebody that can do everything. They can do a bit of everything. You know, they're very versatile. And also, sometimes they can roll up the sleeves and do the work that isn't that much fun. Or it's not the glory work, it doesn't bring in much money. But when you start recruiting part-time or virtual assistant, get these £10 tasks off your plate as a matter of urgency. The reason is, if you're spending any time doing £10 tasks, what you're effectively saying is that your time is only worth £10 an hour. So the game to get to 6 figures and multi-6 figures is recruit for these tasks, and then with the time that you just bought back, reinvest that time in higher value tasks, £100 tasks, £1,000 tasks. Does this all make sense, yes or no? Great. And if you're going to get to 7 figures, multi-7 figures, you need to have a full-time team. Let me give you a quick example. So Rolf Stauffer, Rolf's based in Switzerland. He's actually our longest standing client. He's been with us 6 years. And Rolf has a now multi-6-figure business as a golf coach. So he works on the mental side of the game of golf. And his clients are not professionals, they're amateurs, people that just play for a bit of fun, people like me. I've been on his courses. They're amazing. And Rolf has no desire to have a big team of people and run a 7-figure business. But what he's managed to do over the last few years is build a small team. He's got one assistant that works 3 days a week, and he's got one trainer who delivers some of the training. So the business isn't reliant upon him delivering all the training. And as a result of doing that, he's now, I think this year he's on track to do about 400,000 Swiss francs, which I think translates to about £350,000, doing golf psychology. Doing pretty much, he's a great example actually of everything we've talked about so far. If you think about it, he's positioned himself as an expert, no one else doing golf psychology in Switzerland. He runs marketing campaigns, like I said, one a month. So he'll spend a whole month marketing a course. He'll spend a whole month marketing a program. He's got various different levels of program that people can buy. Everything from I think it's 99 Swiss francs for a 1-day course, introductory, not free, paid introductory course, all the way up to, I think, his 7,000 francs is his top package for a whole year of group coaching. He sells it through one-to-many, running those introductory workshops, 99 Swiss francs a time, and he's got some part-time staff. So he's a great example of somebody that's really mastered that middle level. He actually has no desire to go beyond that, and that's cool. It's not for everybody. Not everybody wants to build a big team. Because with a big team, and my team are in the room, so I better be careful what I say. With a big team comes a bit of hassle and big responsibility. And Rolf didn't want that. Also, using one-to-many, just check this out. He sent me a message not that long ago where using our pitching system that we shared with him, he was running a small event, 24 people in the room, as you can see here, and did 45,900 Swiss francs from one-to-many. He was never doing that before when he was selling one-on-one coaching. He was making 70,000, I think, Swiss francs a year when he was doing one-to-one. So moving one-to-many, getting a part-time team will help you get to that 6-figure mark. And to get to 7 figures, it is full-time, and it is hard work. And what I will also say, genuinely, with my team here, it's the most rewarding thing you'll ever do in business. Employing people, bringing them in, training them, developing them, giving them purpose, that will be absolutely the most rewarding thing you'll ever do in business. For me personally, that's why I do it. So, hopefully you found this session insightful. I'm curious, raise your hand if, as a result of this short session, you've kind of gone, right, I kind of now know either why I haven't managed to progress to that next stage yet, why I've been stuck, or you've now got clarity on, right, now I know exactly what I need to do next in order to get to 50K, 6 figures, 7 figures. Raise your hand if you've got either of those two things now as a result of this session. Great, that was my hope for you. So, I'm going to talk real briefly now. I mentioned to you earlier, you will not get from me at any of my events any kind of big hyped up pitch or anything like that. We've given you all the information in our brochure about our mastermind program. I'm just going to explain it in a little bit more detail so that you can speak to us over the next 24 hours, decide if it's a good fit for you and for your business. So we have got 3 different mastermind programs. And the reason we have 3 different mastermind programs is because of everything I've just said. What it takes to get to 50,000 a year, a full-time income from 0 to consistently be bringing in 4,000 or 5,000 a month is completely different to what it takes to get to 6 figures. And completely different again to what it takes to get 7 figures. So we can't have one program. We can't have one size fits all. Doesn't make sense. So we have 3 programs. The first is called 50K Mastermind. 50K Mastermind is for experts who are just getting started, or maybe they've not got consistency yet in income. Maybe they're making less than 4 grand, 5 grand a month consistent. This is who it's been designed for. The other thing you should know about our mastermind is it's only for experts. It's only for coaches, consultants, speakers, trainers, authors, agencies. It's not for your traditional bricks and mortar business. It's not really for e-commerce businesses. It's for experts. The investment in the 50K Mastermind, the annual fee, you can see this in your brochure, is £8,000 plus VAT for 12 months for the year. 6-figure Mastermind, this is for experts that are already at the stage where making a full-time income, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 a month consistently. They've got that foundation. And they want to get to 6 figures. They want to get to multi-6 figures. That's their next goal. Annual fee for 6-figure Mastermind is £16,000 plus VAT for the year. And 7-figure Mastermind, which to qualify, the qualification criteria is you've got to be doing at least 250,000 a year in sales to qualify for 7-figure Mastermind. And this is for people to get to scale. So now we're talking about building out infrastructure, hiring, getting the right people in, doing mass marketing, setting up a many-to-many sales strategy. 7-figure Mastermind, the annual fee is £24,000 plus VAT. So I'm going to give you a bit of here's what's included. So 50K Mastermind includes, first of all, and this is the case whenever you enroll in any of our mastermind programs, you get a private one-to-one consultation. In that consultation, we'll give you the clarity and the structure and help you prioritize what you need to do in the first, it varies between 30 days and 3 months. So you leave that consultation with, right, I know now exactly what I need to do step by step in the next 30 days to 3 months, depending on how big your business is. We do a whole host of other things. You get one-to-one coaching every single month. Most group coaching programs, most mastermind programs, they're group and that's it. We include one-to-one coaching because I know that people need accountability. I know that in a group setting, certain individuals can get a bit lost and feel like they haven't got everything they need. So the one-on-one coaching is there. By the way, our coaches that deliver the one-on-one coaching, there's 2 of them, and they've both built multi-6-figure expert businesses in their own right. So these are people that have been there and done it. As part of 50K Mastermind, every other month, you get a full-day mastermind meeting hosted by me. So in that meeting, we're focused on all of the things I spoke about, all of those strategies, tactics, tools, techniques that get you the first 50,000 in sales. That's the flavor for those mastermind meetings. We do those all at our training center. This is at our office, at our premises in Birmingham. We're actually just expanding, so that's our current training center. It will be about double that size come February. So we're really excited about that. So you come to our training center just on the outskirts of Birmingham in Solihull. That's for our 50K Mastermind. Also, you get every other month sales training days with Matt Elwell. Now, a couple of our speakers have already mentioned Matt. Ian Luckett mentioned him. And I think David Walsh also mentioned Matt and how his training when it comes to sales and closing has transformed their business. So as part of Mastermind, you get a day every other month of training with Matt. You bring your leads, and if you're brave enough, you can go live calling your leads on the phone in front of the group with max coaching and help. We've had some phenomenal results with clients in the room. I think the record was we had a client that closed a £70,000 deal in one of these sales training or sales coaching days. And there's Matt in action at our training centre. Again, that's at our offices. You get bi-monthly coach training or coaching days with Tony and Nikki V. So I mentioned the world-class coaches we have in our team, Tony and Nikki. They run coaching days, which is more every other month, which is more around you being at a 10 out of 10. You showing up with great energy, getting rid of any hindering thoughts or blocks you might have so that you can be the best version of you. Because I truly believe that your business and the success of your business is a direct reflection of you and the energy that you show up in. We can give you all the strategies, tactics in the world, but if you haven't got this right, you're not showing up as the best version of yourself every day, it won't work. We also have a private Facebook group. Now, that might not sound like much, but we have over 120 active members of our Mastermind community right now. And when you join Mastermind, you get access to those. I mean, you've met some of them today. Paul Moore, Ian Luckett, David Walsh. These are all members of our Mastermind programs. These are the kind of people that you get access to and you can connect with when you join this community. And the Facebook group means that you can connect with these guys anytime you need. That's where you can ask questions, get my help, get my team's help in between the monthly meetings. And then finally, you get access to our marketing vault and all of our marketing templates. So over the last 10 years, I created a lot of marketing material, email marketing, Facebook copy, sales letters. You get access to the lot. So effectively, you can copy and paste and use our stuff that we know works. Obviously, you need to tweak it a little bit to make it relevant for you and for your business. But you've got all those templates there, and we've got a vault of all of our training, recordings of every event we've ever run. So there's a vast depth of information and knowledge in there, if that's what you need. Jilly Woodhouse, Jilly's here somewhere. Here she is. She's gone, oh, yeah, you, Jilly. So Jilly joined our Mastermind about 18 months ago. Year one, 50,000. It was over 50,000. Year one, over 50,000 in sales. Started off at about $2.5 grand a month, I think. Year one, in excess of 50,000 in sales. This year, year two, we are £98,500 this year so far, and we still got 6 weeks. Again, so Jilly's got phenomenal results because she implemented what she was given, of course. And, you know, you're in this community, you're around people like Jilly all the time that have walked the path from here to here. Charlotte DeZorga, I mentioned her earlier. This is the belly dance mentor. First year in Mastermind, did 50K. She's literally just finished her first year and went from, I think she's shared this publicly, so she won't mind me saying, the previous year she generated a whole £12,000 in sales. Last year, or the year just finished, she's done over 50,000 in sales. So that's a significant growth as a result of what we've shown her through 50K Mastermind. All right, 6-figure Mastermind includes everything in 50K. So you get access to all of the above. In addition to that, you also get a every other month 6-figure Mastermind meeting hosted by me. Again, the flavor of that is how do you transform your business from one-to-one to one-to-many? How do you start using events? Webinars. How do we start using marketing campaigns so we can reach more than one person at a time? How do we use social media and start to use paid advertising to get leads and convert people into becoming paying clients? So that's 6-figure Mastermind. We don't discuss a lot of that at 50K because it's not appropriate. So the 6-figure Mastermind is for that level of expert. David Walsh joined our 6-figure Mastermind. I believe it was about 18 months ago, maybe 2 years. And within his first year had exceeded that 100,000 a year, where you can see here he says did his first 20K month with over 14 in the bank. When he started, he was at 5, 6, 7,000 a month consistently. So he was already established, but now he's gone, you know, completely next level, and he actually graduated and moved into our 7-figure Mastermind just a few months back now. And of course, now he's next level and on the way to doing multi-6, mid-6 figures. Finally, 7-figure Mastermind includes everything we've already talked about in 50K and 6-figure, Plus, you get a bi-monthly, every other month, 7-figure mastermind meeting with me. This is small numbers, round table, hot seat in every single person. So we do that in the boardroom at our office. This is the training centre's upstairs, the boardroom's downstairs at our SFB HQ. We've had some amazing people come through this program. Here's one of them. David mentioned Samuel Leeds. Samuel was in our 7-figure mastermind. The previous year, he was mid-6 figures. The year he was in mastermind, he did in excess of 3 million. If you know Samuel, you'll know that he's gone significantly beyond that number now. I'm not at liberty to divulge because it's not my business, but let's say he's in the 8-figure realm now rather than 7. And so Samuel has been through this program. Many people like him. We've got in 7-figure mastermind people from anything from 250,000 all the way up to, I think, 4 million a year is the biggest business that's in there right now. So, as is described in your brochure, the investment. So, 50K mastermind, £8,000 plus VAT. While you're here at Expert Empires, you can make a deposit of 1,500 and 11 payments of 454. That saves you about £1,500 on the usual fee if you were to enroll outside of this event. Or you can make one payment of 4,995. That saves you about £3,000 on the normal enrollment fee. 6-figure mastermind, instead of paying 16K, you can pay a deposit of 3,000 and then 11 payments of 909. Saves you £3,000 on the usual fee. Or one payment of 9,995. Again, that saves you £6,000 on the usual fee. Finally, 7-figure masterminds, normally 24K. You can make a deposit of 4.5, 11 payments of 1,227. Saves you 6K, or one payment of 14,995. Saves you 9,000. So those are the fees. All the information's in your brochure. There's a few things that aren't in your brochure that I'm just going to mention to you now. The first one is the fees, whilst significant, I'd like to think of Mastermind as reassuringly expensive. The fees aren't really the most important thing. The most important thing is, how do you know it's going to work? How do you know it's going to get you the result you're looking for? So there's 6 reasons why this works. The first one is, when you join, you get a one-to-one, tailored strategic consultation. It's just for you. Every single person leaves that with a different plan, with a structure, with here's the priorities that you need to focus on for the next 30 days to 3 months. It's not a one-size-fits-all program, individual just for you. The second thing is, and I hope so far here at Expert Empires, your experience of being around us is that you realize that me and my team will do whatever it takes to get your business to the level you want it to be at, to get you the result you're looking for. That's how we roll. We'll stop at nothing to make your business success. Also, you're getting access, you're joining, you're collaborating, you're becoming part of a peer group of 6- and 7-figure earning experts, people that are already doing it at a mega level. You're becoming part of that. I know it's cliche, but the people you surround yourself with are who you become. When you join our program, you're putting yourself around people that are already doing 6 figures, multi-6 figures, 7 figures. You get accountability a few ways. One, you get one-on-one coaching every single month, booked in the diary with one of our coaches. Second thing, our mastermind meetings, you do not want to turn up to a mastermind meeting and be the only person that hasn't implemented and taken action on the things you said you would. So there's a bit of implied accountability through that. And of course, you can utilize the community. I know a lot of our members, a lot of our clients, they kind of buddy up, team up, and hold each other accountable in a bit of a kind of buddy system. Number 5, I already mentioned, you get access to our templates, which means effectively 90% of the work when it comes to generating leads and getting clients, it's been done for you. I've been doing this for 10, 12 years. You can literally copy and paste what I've done that works and put it to work in your business. And the final reason why you know it's going to work is it is 100% guaranteed. Here's what I mean. So, when you invest in Mastermind, if you don't get at least twice the money you invested back in additional sales in 12 months, I'll give you a full refund. How can I say that? Here's how. By the way, you might ask me, I sometimes get asked this, how many times have you given the refund? Twice. Twice. Because it happened. These people legitimately, they engaged in the program. By the way, we've currently got 120 plus active members. They engaged in the program, they attended the meetings, they implemented, they did what they were told. For whatever reason, it didn't work for them. Happily gave them a full refund. Everybody else that attends the meetings and engages and implements gets results. There are no exceptions. But the caveat is you have to show up. You have to engage. You have to ask for help. And of course, you have to implement the plans that we give you. So, a couple of final things. First of all, there is no run to the back and do it now, any of that stuff. You've got until 3:30 tomorrow. Registration's open now, and it closes at 3:30 tomorrow. So you've got basically 24 hours to have a chat to me, to the team, to other members of Mastermind, and see how you feel, see if it's a good fit for you. Because the program starts at 6 p.m., so when you leave Expert Empires as a Mastermind member, you're not leaving and going, well, I haven't really started yet. I don't really know what I'm doing next. We start the program at 6 p.m. tomorrow before you leave the building. Hence why registration has to close at 3:30. And that said, as a little incentive, again, there's no rush to do it now, but for the first 12 people that decide to join Mastermind and enroll with us, then we'll invite you to a private, done with you, as we call it, day with me and my team. So we've got a whole day where we've got copywriters, salespeople, graphic designers, my team, social media experts, all of my team, there's 17 of us, we're there to work for you for the day. And so for the first 12 people, we can't do it for more than 12 for obvious reasons. First 12 people that enroll in Mastermind while you're here, we'll give you a private done with you day at SFB HQ. So I hope you found this session hugely valuable. We're going to take a 15-minute break now. So great time for you to come and speak to me, to Jack, to Matt about the Mastermind program. 15-minute break, and then we're back for Carrie Green in 15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much.